I want to focus on, can science save the world? Because, hey, that's a fun goal, right? First, let's start with a really tiny world, quantum entanglement, where groups of particles are interacting such that quantum state of each is correlated and can't be disconnected from other ones. So that's what the whole universe is made up of, right? Instead, a quantum state may be given for the system as a whole. We're connected, we got to work together. The measurement of the property of one particle acts on the property of another particle, and therefore it affects the entangled system as a whole. So scientists in this same system that has a quantum universe, we are not neutral observers of the entangled system. We are actors. And as Einstein and Russell said in 1955, we need to learn to think in a new way, to incorporate the fact that humans are actors and not just observers. Now, they did a great job with this. In fact, they created an organization called the Pugwash Conferences on Science and World Affairs that said basically scientists on both sides of the East-West divide, time to get together and stop the nuclear craze that we were dealing with. And they won the Nobel Peace Prize 40 years later. So, hey, he got a science and a Peace Prize there. Good way to go, Al. So our typical way of doing science here is we observe something, we get a hypothesis about it, we then go ahead and test that hypothesis through experiments and we come up with conclusions. But that doesn't really throw us in the middle of the scientific method. What we need to do is be able to incorporate the idea of cycles of action research and change involving reflecting on what's going on now, planning, acting, observing, and reflecting again in increasing cycles, or if you want, helices. So let's talk about an action research double helix. First, we can be focusing at the human scale of what are the problems and the needs that people need to be solved in order to have a more sustainable world. And the second, we can focus on the second half of the double helix as being that global scale impact. In 1992, the Earth Summit in Rio basically said, okay, here's what we need to reflect on. Humanity stands at a defining moment in history. We are confronted with a perpetuation of disparities, worsening poverty, et cetera, et cetera. You can read it later. And we came up with a couple of plans, the Biodiversity, Climate, and Desertification Conventions being several of them. Earth Summit 10 years later said, okay, now let's act on it. We have 8 different areas like poverty, education, health, and diseases, and environmental sustainability we need to focus on over the next 10 years. And let's see how we can do that in an action research kind of way. What we found, our hypothesis is, we can do all of these things at once, and in 15 years we will have reached nirvana. It's a great planet we live on. Well, today we're 15 years later. We didn't quite get there, but just as 2 examples, we have the number of people without access to clean water. Thank you. And we continue to increase our greenhouse gas emissions, which tied into our last presentation. So what? Well, as scientists, we can take big data and say, hey, wait, high CO2 correlates with safe drinking water. If I use a lot of energy, I can clean my water. And countries that do that are both producing more greenhouse gas emissions and having better water quality. Bummer, right? We want to decouple that. Second issue here, if you take a given country and you look over that period of time, it turns out some countries increased one and decreased the other, both decreased both. Romania was the only country that really was able to decrease its greenhouse gas emissions and increase the people who had access to clean water. Go team. Okay. One other thing we need to think about here is other planetary boundaries. All these red things here for the biosphere integrity, for biogeochemical flows, these are places where we're already outside of the boundaries of risk to our planet. We're in trouble with these, and we need to focus on those over the next 15 years. Unfortunately, we only have 3 of our sustainable development goals that are being developed this year and ratified by the UN in September that focus on the environment, climate change, ocean, seas, and terrestrial ecosystems, and a whole bunch of things that focus on the people but not the environment. We've got to figure out how to bring those together. And this just gives you an example that those goals match up pretty well with some of those boundaries, except for we're not focusing on the agricultural role in biogeochemical cycles. So with action research scientists like you, we can ensure that science can save the world. Thank you very much.